A self-appointed neighborhood enforcer pulls a gun on a teen, unaware the boy's father was watching. Terrence Brooks wasn't looking for trouble. That chapter of his life was behind him. At 42, he had done his time, 2 decades with the U.S. Army Special Forces, countless missions overseas, a chest full of medals he never talked about, and more stories than he'd ever share with anyone, except maybe his son Dorian. Now, he just wanted normalcy. Grass that needed mowing, a garage cluttered with too many boxes, and sleep uninterrupted by distant gunfire or tense orders whispered through a radio. When he found a modest 3-bedroom home on a tree-lined street in Warner Robins, Georgia, a town quiet enough to forget the noise, he didn't hesitate. The house wasn't fancy, but it had a good roof, space in the backyard for Dorian to run around, and neighbors who, at least on paper, seemed like the kind who kept their lawns neat and their noses out of other people's business. But Terrence should have known peace for men like him rarely came that easy. The first few days passed uneventfully. Dorian, sharp for his 14 years, helped unpack boxes and set up their home. But Terrence quickly noticed the sideways glances, how people slowed their cars when passing their house, how a woman walking her golden retriever crossed the street to avoid them, how a delivery guy hesitated before knocking. Dorian noticed, too. He didn't say anything, just shot his dad a look when a beat-up red Ford pickup kept circling the block. Its driver, a lean white man in his 50s with sunglasses too big for his face, staring a little too long. Terrence installed 2 more security cameras. No panic, no raised voices, just quiet tension, like something was being built out of dry sticks, waiting for one spark. Later that night, Dorian asked, Asterisk, you think they'll ever stop looking at us like that? Asterisk. Terrence sighed. Asterisk. Some people need longer to adjust to difference. Doesn't mean we stop living. Asterisk. Dean Whitlock didn't need a badge to feel like a cop. He wore a fake security badge clipped to his belt next to the pistol. He carried with 0 training and way too much pride. He wasn't appointed by anyone. He appointed himself. For 19 years, he'd policed the neighborhood, leaving passive-aggressive notes, calling in suspicious activity, and escalating whenever he could. When Terrence and Dorian moved in, something in him tightened. He didn't care about Terrence's military service or that they kept their lawn trimmed. He just saw what he wanted to see, 2 black faces on his street. Dean wasn't subtle. He'd creep past in his truck, watching Dorian. One afternoon, Terrence caught him on camera, pretending to inspect their sidewalk. When Terrence filed a report with the HOA, the response was a form letter. Asterisk, HOA security is not an active division of our association. Asterisk. In other words, Dean wasn't theirs, but no one was going to stop him either. It was a Thursday afternoon when Dean finally made his move. Dorian was outside fixing his bike when Dean pulled up, got out, and walked straight toward him, hand resting near his holster. You don't live here, Dean said flatly. Dorian stood his ground. Asterisk, I do. Asterisk. Dean took another step. Asterisk, prove it. Asterisk. Then he pulled his gun, not pointed directly, but angled down like a threat. Inside, Terrence saw it all on the Ring camera. He didn't yell, didn't panic. He moved fast, retrieving his legally registered Sig Sauer, the same one he'd carried in the service. By the time he stepped onto the porch, Dean had taken another step toward Dorian. You take one more step with that weapon pointed near my son, Terrence said, voice steady. Asterisk. And you won't get another one. Asterisk. Dean froze. His hand twitched on the pistol. Asterisk. Unclip it. Now. Asterisk. Dean hesitated, then slowly unholstered his gun and placed it on the sidewalk. The police arrived, reviewed the footage, and arrested Dean for brandishing a weapon at a minor and impersonating an officer. But what shook Terrence most wasn't Dean's gun. It was how many neighbors had watched and stayed silent. The neighborhood group chat lit up with whispers. Asterisk. That new guy had a gun, too. This is why background checks matter. Asterisk. No one apologized. No one stood up. But Terrence didn't fight back the way they expected. He didn't yell, didn't retaliate when someone spray-painted trouble on their trash can. He just left it there, refusing to give them the reaction they wanted. Hashtag. Over time, the stares faded. The whispers died down. The HOA passed a new rule banning unauthorized security patrols. Dean was barred from the neighborhood. But Terrence knew this wasn't over. It wasn't just about one man. It was about an entire community deciding who belonged. One evening, Dorian asked, asterisk, "Do you think Dean ever really thought I was a threat?" Asterisk. Terrence shook his head. Asterisk. He didn't care what was true. He cared about control. Asterisk. Dorian nodded. Asterisk. And he still didn't say sorry. Asterisk. Asterisk. People like that rarely do. Asterisk. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Months later, Dorian stood in front of the school, telling his story. "He pulled a gun on me," he said plainly. Asterisk. He said I didn't belong, but I was on my own street. Asterisk. Terrence watched in the back of the gym, pride swelling in his chest. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, hands finally relaxed. The porch light flicked on, not for danger, just for a passing squirrel. For the first time in a long time, Terrence believed maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't need the gun by the door anymore. Because the real victory wasn't just surviving the fire, it was staying human through it. If this story meant something to you, share it. Let others hear it. Let the silence break. Asterisk, asterisk.